Assalamu alaikum. You're watching User News and I'm Faisal Rahman live from our Islamabad studios today. Since this is the last program of the year as far as views and news is concerned, but interestingly, we have picked up the topic which is very important, very close to my heart also, and that is about the overall economy. So in our tonight's program, we'll be actually just reviewing the overall economic policies of the government, the kind of problems they have gone through, the kind of opportunities they see, and on top, the kind of threats that still prevail. Today we were talking about this very interesting issue of the finance bill. The government has its own claim, whereas the opposition, they think otherwise. At the same time, another story, the WHO has warned about the COVID tsunami. So interestingly, that is going to have its own effect on so many economies, including Pakistan. Another important factor is perhaps about the future. Now, as we all know, that the commodity prices have gone up. And Pakistan, unfortunately, over a period of time, we have become importers of even products like wheat and even pulses for that matter. 80% of the pulses, they are imported, imagine. So you can see the basic issue still lies there. Now, another important factor, which I believe is very important, is that no matter what sort of a policy you end up developing, the real issue, the real challenge is about its implementation. And that is where the problem seems to be. Now, today we'll be talking about that in detail and the kind of challenges the government already had faced and what sort of challenges will lie ahead in 2022. But before I introduce you to our panelists, our production team has prepared a report. Let's watch that.
Year 2021 is finally ending with bittersweet memories of Pakistan's struggle with the COVID-19 ever-changing variants and respective global economic uncertainties accompanied with the global hikes in commodity prices. However, Pakistan's government, under the leadership of Imran Khan, took difficult but necessary steps to revive the economic health of the country by prudently fighting with the COVID-19's Delta variant challenge of 2021. On the other hand, a landmark and historical decision of making economic security of citizens of Pakistan the core of the National Security Policy 2022 to 2026 is a proof that the current government's highest priority is to make Pakistan an economically secure and stable country. The efforts of the government were documented in the recently released Economic Outlook Report of December 2021 by Ministry of Finance. The Economic Outlook Report for December 2021 showed that the economy of Pakistan has recovered after better performance at coping with COVID-19 pandemic, and despite the spread of the Omicron variant, the cyclical position in the main trading partners, as witnessed by the composite leading indicators, remains stabilized, which is encouraging for the Pakistan's exports. According to the Economic Outlook Report, despite high global commodity prices, government is taking administrative, relief and policy measures to ease out the inflationary pressures in the coming months, and the government's fiscal consolidation efforts are paying off in terms of improved fiscal accounts. The report documented that with prudent expenditure management and an effective revenue mobilization strategy, it is expected that the overall fiscal deficit would remain within the reasonable level.
Now, to talk about this, let me quickly introduce you to our panelists. We have with us in our studio on my right is Sardar Yasir Khan Sahab. Sardar Sahab is the former president of Islamabad Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Pleasure to have you, Sardar Sahab, in the program. And we also have with us Faheem Sardar, a senior policy specialist of SPPC. Thank you so much, Faheem Sahab, for your time as well. And on Skype, we have with us Shahid Ali Habib, the Chief Executive Officer of Arif Habib. Thank you so much for your time. It's a pleasure to have you on the show. Now, let me start off from you, Sardar Sahab. You've been the president of ICCI. A lot of issues must have been discussed over a period of time, especially post-COVID. Things have changed, and things have changed dramatically, drastically, and on top, sir, a lot of people believe that Pakistan, since we were not among those countries who really suffered, countries, even smaller countries like UAE for that matter, and so many other countries which were based primarily, their tourism was really kicking up. So the case was with their airline industry, and tourism is always related to a lot of impulse buying at the same time. So these countries have suffered, whereas when it comes to Pakistan, obviously one thing which we all really believe that was the key factor in generating a lot of criticism against the government was primarily the inflation part, the food inflation. But now, sir, we see that the government seems to be in dire straits at the moment. I mean, looking for a certain amount of money to be deposited in the state bank, getting more dollars from the IMF to pay off the interest of the pending huge sum of $116 billion. That is your external debt. Internal is about 200 plus, if I'm not wrong. But having said that, sir, and then so many other measures, for example, autonomy to the State Bank of Pakistan. The opposition says that we are handing over our jugular vein to the IMF. Perhaps tomorrow they'll come up and say, oh, your nuclear program could be a threat. So, you know, put a check on that as well. Whatever policies we have developed over a period of time, the kind of implementation that we have gone through. So, are you satisfied as a businessman, as a trader, and also somebody who has closely monitored regarding the fiscal policies and the monetary policy and so on and so forth, so being the head of the ICCI?
I think we have to appreciate the government for everything they've tried to do. As you said yourself, that we're not looking at a current loan, current outstanding debt. This is a debt that's been built up over years and years of lending that we've had from IMF and obviously other channels as well. What's unfortunate is that people are not realizing that this is not a one-man show. Everyone is trying to contribute from their side, and it's very difficult to try and save a sinking ship at the same time steer it forward, which is exactly what the Prime Minister is trying to do. Now, if you look at currently with what's happened in COVID-19, it's a perfect example. With the global economy, everything was uncertain. You know, there was a global crisis with regards to a debt crisis in a way around the world, where you saw that there was an asset bubble burst fear. There was a fear with regards to price instability. And if you also look at the prices globally, worldwide, if you look at the oil alone, crude oil has gone up significantly. Soybean has gone up a lot. You've got sugar prices that have gone up. Wheat prices have gone up a lot. Natural gas has gone up a lot. So Pakistani government has tried to absorb at least 50% of that and not pass it on to the end user. So they can only bear so much burden. So they've tried their best, but this is a global phenomenon. So this is globally what's happened, and then we're obviously going to face, it's a ripple effect. We're going to face that as well. So the inflation is part in that. The other problem with regards to inflation in Pakistan is we're not producing what we should be. So as a country which should be based on industries, we're not moving on our core strengths. So Pakistan currently, as you look, if you look at wheat, like you said yourself, that we're importing wheat, we're importing 90% of the raw material that's required within Pakistan itself. So we're not moving to an area which is our core strength, and that's why we're dependent. If you look at our trade deficit alone this year, we're looking at about $3.8 billion, which is huge. But if you compare that with 2018, we're still way better off. So we'll try to decrease that. But then again, it's going to take time. It's not something that can be done overnight. It's going to take several years. It's not a quick fix. So we do appreciate the government, especially with regards to COVID-19, the way things were handled. Alhamdulillah, we've shown time and time again that despite the challenges, everything that's been thrown at Pakistan as a resilient nation, we've come through. We've overcome that. And we have to give credit to the Prime Minister for allowing businesses to remain open, continue with production, which is why we were able to compete with industries such as Bangladesh, industries in China, industries in India, because those are our main competitors. And I think we were able to enhance our export, and that's why our economic indicators have been stable as far as going up in the positive, which is why your GDP was going to about 4%, which unlike other economies was far higher than what they had anticipated. And IMF itself, the World Bank itself, said that this is an example for the rest of the world to learn from. So we have the right people, the right leadership, and the governance which has been missing in the past, but it's going to take time. It's not something that can be corrected overnight.
How do you see this incoming finance bill? I mean, there's a lot of hue and cry. Opposition is totally against it, and they believe that this is really going to be the final nail in our coffin. Actually, this is how they see it. But the government is very keen to get it implemented, get it passed, and get it done with it. But a lot of concerns. So, do you think the opposition has got some sort of legitimate concerns as well, or it is just for the sake of being in opposition?
Look, I think it's always good to have an opposition, but you have to be a realist. In the current scenario, if we're not able to agree on come to a consensus, we're not going to be able to get the remaining program from IMF. We need that funding. We're currently already bleeding as it is. As you know that with our budget, we've got a defense segment. We've obviously got our salaries with all the government departments. We've got hundreds of thousands of people that are working for us, which are, I think, perhaps overheads which we shouldn't have, but we do have them. So we can't restructure these organizations overnight. we've got PIA, we've got a lot of our government entities. So that's one aspect of it, and defense is really, really important. We're overlooking this. So if you're going to leave the country to starve and you're not going to have the funds, how do you think the government's going to be able to run? So we can't have a government that's going to shut down because we're not able to pay our salaries. So the opposition could be trying that, which is not something I'm advocating, but it could be a potential that, you know what, if they don't get the funding from IMF, what are they going to do? Who are they going to go to? Then again, we're going to go to Saudi Arabia, we're going to go to China. It's embarrassing for a country like Pakistan to have to go to these people. I can tell you, $6 billion can be raised from Pakistan if you have the right approach. Tax collection is one aspect. But I'm telling you, in terms of lending itself, if we're able to ask the overseas Pakistanis to contribute, like we did back in the earthquake. In 2005, 2006, you know how many people put their money out. So as a welfare, as a country that works really proactively on welfare, I can promise you this fund can be generated. Pakistani nation and Pakistanis overseas have the capacity and the funding available. It just depends how far you're able to push them, how far you're able to convince them, and the trust deficit needs to be decreased.
That trust deficit is the key factor, Sardar Sahab, in other important areas. I was just going through an article the other day, and I'm not sure whether the figures were correct, but they were pretty mind-blowing. It is believed that Pakistanis, or the overseas Pakistanis, they have invested around $20 billion in cryptocurrencies. So that is the future. That is the digital currency, perhaps. You know, whenever you listen to Elon Musk, I mean, he really persuades you as if, you know, you really need to invest in this now. And seriously, over here in Pakistan, it's the other way around. We're putting a check on that, whereas the world is moving in a different direction. So alignments with the global structures, I mean, how important is that for Pakistan?
Okay, I think when it comes to cryptocurrency, I think this conversation might not be for me, because what I'm going to say is going to shock people and make people unhappy. I'm very against cryptocurrency because I'm an investments. I've spent most of my career in investments. I know a gamble when I see one. Okay, I know value when I see it, and I know when the two are mistaken for the other. So it's good to have an additional product. It's good to have something at the sidelines. It's good to move ahead in life. But to suddenly start to think that the economy is now, first it was gold, no, first it was barter, then it was salt, then it was gold, then it was silver, then it was fiat, then from fiat it was plastic, then it was faith, from faith now you moved into super faith. That now, what is the value behind a cryptocurrency? It's super faith. So I am very cautious about this. It looks like a gamble to me. But anyway, those who want to gamble, it's their money, not mine. But as a nation, as a country, as a national policy, I always say that we should explore new avenues. There's no harm in that. But let's not make it mainstream overnight. Let's explore it. Let's take time. When something sounds too good to be true, it is too good to be true. No, that's an old adage. It never fails. When it comes to Pakistan, Pakistan has so many other things going for itself. Our chalghoze, palm nuts are basically equal to bitcoins. Technically speaking, they're so expensive now, so might as well use chalghoze as currency. You know, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Start securitize.
Like chia seeds, they were used once.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is, if we want to go down that path, then might as well go down a slightly more saner path. This sounds funny to people. Here, I'm going to say another thing which might sound weird. It's barter economies, barter markets. We have to set them up very quickly. And barter markets with electronic systems, electronic settlement systems. Why? Because the coming times, I am foreseeing a lot of currency volatility. I'm seeing even currency wars. We see COVID has upended everything. Every nation is now up for grabs. Every nation wants to go up for grabs now. So it is once again, like it always is in history, in life, for humans, it is a race for resources. There is a massive restructuring happening right now. That's why, as Sardar Sahab very rightly, very lucidly, he explained the rise in prices of all commodities. There's a reason commodity prices have gone up throughout the world. Something has gone wrong. At one point, oil futures were negative.
Yes.
Now,
not that far away.
Yeah,
far away.
One year ago. 1 year, you had companies like Vopak. They didn't know what to do because it's one of the biggest oil containment companies on earth. So what I'm trying to say is, when everything is turned into a black swan, one needs to step back and go back to the basics, which Pakistan has done very well, to be very honest. The way we handled COVID was actually a very basic way of handling COVID, not some outrageous Martian way of handling it. We did it very well. We used our experience in dengue, Congo virus, pig flu or whatever, swine flu or whatever. We used that experience and we built up on that. It's very basic stuff that we just built upon a foundation that we already had. So when it comes to Pakistan, we have been reconfiguring our economy for the past 1.5 years. And if you take away COVID, if you take away the locust attack, Pakistan was actually in a surplus. So let's give ourselves a break. Yes, because once again, going back to the basics, if the price of wheat, sugar, and oil has increased, which is a subsistence level product, and our people, most of Pakistanis need that on a daily basis. They live off it. We need to increase our supplies, domestic production. Hence, now let's go back to the basics. Pakistan's wheat production is expected to hit record. Cotton production has hit a record. We're expecting a bumper crop in sugar. Why? Because those things were not done now. They were done more than a year ago, when everyone was rightfully critical. I accept criticism as a way forward, not as something personal. So when you started off with crypto, I've taken it to the other side. All I'm saying is whenever it comes to economics, because I'm very sensitive about it, when it comes to money, it's advisable at times to go back to the basics. And I myself have been promoting barter markets. Initially, people laugh at me. What are you talking about? Now, believe me.
What sort of a scope do we have, considering Iran on one side, a country under sanctions, and another country under sanctions, that is Afghanistan?
Afghanistan currently is actually not under sanctions. Afghanistan's international banking net has been stopped for the timing. It will be reopened because even the UN has now started saying things. That Pakistan very successfully has labored internationally, and through the OIC summit, we put this thing forward. When you are dealing with a country that has sanctions, you see, sanctions are a very interesting thing. I did some work on that. You have to study the sanctions first. What is sanction about? Iran has more commodities than Pakistan. This is something that people don't know.
Look at the precious metals, and on top, I mean,
and I'm talking about consumer commodities. So that means they have a thriving domestic market. So what you do is you have to bridge that gap. What does that gap get bridged by? A foreign currency. So there's another way of doing it. Set up barter markets with an electronic system. That's even easier. It sounds alien and primitive to us, but that's exactly what we do. Now I'm going to say something which is very strange. In advanced financial markets are actually doing barter trades with each other. It's called swaps. I won't get into the details right now, but basically that's technically financial barter. So what I'm saying is, let's go back to the basics. Let's appreciate what we've done. We need to increase our domestic supplies of subsistence level products. We need to indigenize, and we need to bring down the interest rate.
All right. Now let's go to Karachi, and let's join Shahid Ali Habib Sahab. Shahid Sahab, start off from the capital market side, sir. The market has been volatile, and at the end of the day, we also saw recovery. We also saw some sort of correction out there. Now, talking about these sectors in particular, sir. Obviously, when you talk about the growth in the construction, so you're referring to the cement sector, you're referring to all those related to that particular industry, so on and so forth. So it is also believed that a lot of foreign investors, they come in, they take a position, and the moment they are in that particular graph where they have made a certain amount of profit, they take their money out. And then the market corrects itself and goes down. I mean, this is what we have been witnessing over a period of time, sir. Tell us about the exact parameters in terms of growth, sir. The tangible factors that, for example, XYZ cement factory, their shares have gone up or they've doubled, let's suppose, in a year's time. So perhaps the production has also multiplied. Maybe their plants, they have also increased their production, or perhaps they have bought some other shares, as far as their portfolio is concerned. So how does it operate now? Because honestly speaking, there was a lot of talk going on about the stock market, and in particular about the Karachi Stock Exchange. Sometimes we hear that this has become the best performing market in Asia. After suppose next 2 weeks or so, we see a major correction, which people believe was very much due. Is this also some sort of a bubble kind of an effect, sir?
question, and I would say that is it equal? Can you hear me? Yeah, okay. So it's a very relevant question, and I think that you are very right that yes, we have grown a lot. Last year, there was a great performance of the stock market, and it is all because that the large scale manufacturing was growing at an exceptional rate. Even this financial year, we have a phenomenal growth of large scale manufacturing that drives the growth in the cement sector, in the steel sector, and across the board in the auto sector as well. So we have seen 8.5% of large scale manufacturing growth in FY21, and we are also expecting this kind of growth in FY22. You are very right that whether these plants have done well or not. Let me give you an idea that this year in FY21, the overall profitability of the KC oil companies has crossed 1 trillion rupees compared to 500 to 600 billion rupees, in 2015 and 16. So they have done very well as far as the profitability is concerned. As far as the expansion is concerned, most of the cement plants have expanded their capacity in the last 2-3 years, and they were very bullish on the economy as well. And as far as the economy is concerned, we have done very well as far as the first 5-6 months of this calendar year. There was current account surplus as well. We have seen very low current account deficit. When we closed FY21, it was just $1.9 billion of current account deficit. After August, we have seen some high current account deficit number, and that is also because of the commodity cycle. That commodities were touching very high, like oil, steel, LNG prices, RLNG prices. They have crossed very high. So that's why this high commodity prices have actually impacted our trade deficit, and that's how our current account deficit and our growth, which we were expecting, should be higher, which now we have to consolidate it around 5.25%. So yes, as far as the stock market performance is concerned, we have done very well last year. This year it was not a great performance. We are just closing at 0.5 or 0.6% since start of the year. That's because that there was uncertainty on the economy side. There's uncertainty on the IMF side. Now, inshallah, we will be closing our IMF package in January, so that will give more certainty to the stock market investors. And as far as the foreign outflow is concerned, yes, there was more than $300 million of outflow this year. And just to tell you, just to share this information that our current foreign investment in the listed sector is very low compared to even 2008. We are even having lower foreign investment than 2008. Currently, we have $2 billion of foreign holding in the listed space out of $44 billion of market capitalization. And if we even take out the strategic foreign investment, which is around 1.5 billion dollars, it's just $500 million. So it's very low compared to the period we had in 2017 when we had $8 billion of foreign investment. So the foreign outflows have definitely triggered the stock market performance, and it has actually impacted the market performance. Otherwise, I think the local liquidity would have improved the gain in the market in the returns as well.
All right. Now coming to you, Siddhartha, a couple of very important factors. What we have learned over a period of time, what the economists tell us, is that remittances are very important. That's how you have dollars in your kitty. Good enough, sir? So a record number of remittances are coming in from USA, Europe, and especially from the Middle East. Good enough, sir? Then they say, well, your exports should definitely go up, because that's where the actual strength of any economy is. The more exports you have, again, if you have surplus, that's great enough. That's how you end up saving money, and then you can allocate it for so many other various projects. And another factor, which is perhaps the most important, is about the investment pouring in, sir, because that is going to generate employment. Foreign investment means that, you know, your image is getting better, and, you know, it is related to so many other aspects also. We do understand, sir, over a period of time, if you look at Bangladesh for that matter, so 6.5% of the global market share as far as textile is concerned. It's a small country, and a lot of people believe that women workforce, they are there in that particular field, and especially after the introduction of this Grameen Bank and women empowerment, that concept really encouraged people, and perhaps this is the result of that. Good enough, sir? Over here, sir, when we talk about Pakistan, forget about the Grameen Bank, we have this SAS program, which the government claims is very successful because a lot of international financial institutions, they've also hailed and they've really appreciated this effort. But, sir, my point is that we were the cotton producers, we got into value addition, and we made a lot of money. 70% of our total exports were based on textile. Now, sir, you end up hearing about this Egyptian cotton, perhaps, and so many other, you know, value-added products that you are importing from other countries. You end up picking a shirt and the customer, as a customer, and the salesman would tell you that, well, this is the Italian cotton or perhaps the Egyptian cotton, and you know the price difference is this much. But I'm saying, sir, high time for product diversification. The other day, our Minister for Science and Technology, Shibli Faraj Sahab, was saying that you know, you talk about any market, you talk about industrial output for that matter. Look at the huge amount of money that countries make. Let's look at your share in it. So we have lost the market share in so many areas where we had a lot of strength. The only thing, sir, it's high time for a country like Pakistan, where the labor efficiency is at a very lower level, that effectiveness or that productivity is very low as compared to Far Eastern countries. Product diversification, sir, and value addition. Let's talk about that.
When you talk about Bangladesh, the industry is what changed everything for them. If you look at their per capita GDP, is close to touching about $2,400. When you look at Pakistan, we're struggling at about $1,200. And that shows you that there is potential, but we're not nowhere near. As far as our competition is concerned, you're looking at about 160 million people versus 220 million people. Also, as in terms of land mass, we have far more geographic diversity than they have. If you look at from Karachi all the way to north, we've talked about tourism, and Prime Minister himself has said that there's about $38 billion worth of tourism that you can generate. So we need to diversify not just products, also services and different sectors. Look, this is the first government which is actually focusing on diversification. They're the first government that actually came out with an SME policy, which was just announced recently. And, you know, we're looking at about 30 billion rupees being injected into an area where you're looking at 5.2 million companies at least, which is contributing to 40% of your GDP, and again contributing 25% of your exports. So imagine if these companies are offered lower turnover tax, offered credit at much lower rates, offer ease of doing business in terms of registration, setting up, no manipulations, no bureaucracy to be faced. Imagine how much they will be able to expand into different services. Look, even in terms of our GDP breakdown, you're looking at the flaws right there. 50% of our contribution is from service sector, which it shouldn't be. We should be looking at about 80% from manufacturing alone. And this is why we've lagged behind. So we're finally getting ourselves into the right direction because of the right governance. So they are giving the right policy, but again, 30 billion is nowhere near as much as what's actually required. We need way more funding. And that funding, like you
why is this area has been neglected for such a long time? SME.
It's a lack of focus. We've never been able to prioritize.
Backbone of any economy.
It is for any economy. You know, small and enterprise is exactly what drives any economy forward. And it diversifies into various sectors, especially in terms of manufacturing. You look at leather, you look at various goods. And we've not been able to focus on that. That's been our core strength. If you look at minerals alone, there's a potential of about $5 billion annually. And we can enhance that by adding the transfer of technology and validation and the right certifications in the labs with HID, GIA, IGI. We have potential to export $32 billion worth of minerals just in Pakistan, gems, jewelry, and minerals, but we're nowhere near it. In terms of regional trade, like we were talking about stable Afghanistan and Central Asia, we can do a regional trade about $80 billion plus. So there's potential in all fronts. Agriculture, like you said, in terms of just cotton, forget that. If we look at our mangoes, if we look at our dates, if we look at our apples, if we look at our citrus, we can easily, and that's the land mass, we have 880,000 kilometers. I mean, it's a lot of land. It's bigger than Germany. We're bigger than most of Europe. We're bigger than Central Asia. We can produce at least and export about $100 billion worth of agro alone. So look at the potential and look what's happening on ground, because Pakistan, unfortunately, has just been derailed. We've been put into a corner, and people think this country can't prosper. This is one of the top Asian tigers of the world, and we've been neglected. We've been perhaps taken for granted. But I promise you, give this country an opportunity.
From within, sir, or to the external forces?
Both, definitely both. Look, in terms of image building, unfortunately, Pakistan has not been able to market itself. And there's a lot of anti-Pakistan lobbying happening worldwide. Look at the fund that was coming in from Saudi Arabia right now. It was perfectly fine, and all of a sudden, they turned around and said, you know what, there's going to be conditions. We didn't expect conditions from them. They are a building nation, but they were manipulated, guided or misguided into that. And that happens in Pakistan all the time. Like we talk about India, they've got about 3-4 different international agencies doing propaganda against Pakistan, against Balochistan. I've been to Tilburg myself. We're looking at about 500,000-600,000 people that are living in Tilburg. Everything being sold in Tilburg is coming in from Iran. If you look at Gwadar is offering you a 21-year tax holiday with the special economic zone that they have. It's an ideal environment. What do you think Saudi Arabia is doing with Neom City? Neom City is offering you 50 years tax holiday, and they're trying to make that a central hub of the Middle East. We can do exactly the same. We can create the Formula One tracks that Abu Dhabi has, Baku has, Bahrain has. We've got all the talent, the resources, and the land.
What's the problem to that?
The problem is we need to attract investment. We need to first and foremost sort out our internal affairs. Currently, with all these riots, these protests, obviously with TLP what happens, and obviously what happened in South Code, I personally am telling you that this country is being sabotaged from within so it doesn't grow, and we're not able to get onto the right direction. It has all the potential. The people of Pakistan want to prosper, not just internally, also our overseas Pakistanis want to see Pakistan excelling. I'll give you one more example. This year alone, when we did the largest property housing construction expo in collaboration with NABDA, and NABDA is doing a lot of work with regards to the average man being able to afford a home. Same thing with Kamyab Juwan program, Asas program, Sahulat card program, Health Sahulat card program.
So we have similar programs during the previous regime also.
But these are actually,
a lot of money was allocated and we haven't heard.
It's not being allocated. This fund is actually being spent. A person being able to spend 1 million on his health, it's never happened before. It's unprecedented, and people are actually spending. So on ground, the people are there that can actually tell you that we've actually been able to benefit. So the money was allocated, but was it given? I can guarantee now it is being given. That's the difference. The other thing is with regards to this government, look, they're trying to focus on different sectors. Like I talked about IT last time. $900 million in the past. This is the first time we're going to be hoping we touch $3 billion in terms of IT exports. That's a huge number. So we are going in the right direction, but we're going far slower because of all the issues internally and externally. With regards to Pakistan being sabotaged, I'm telling you, this is exactly what's being done. And unfortunately, there's a lot of forces working against us rather than for us.
Well, I really would appreciate
one more thing.
Minister Aminul Haq, that he really wants no tax to be put on the IT. And
so just one question I missed out on. The property. Just in this region, Islamabad, Pindi, minimum, on average, we're looking at about 250 billion rupees worth of projects happening right now as we speak.
250
billion. And 1 million houses, 1 million houses are being delivered through these projects immediately. So Prime Minister's vision of 5 million houses, it is realistic. Do you know how many we need? We need 12 million houses. So 250 billion is just within this region. So imagine the projects in Lahore, imagine the projects in Karachi. We're looking at trillions. In terms of the asset allocation, in terms of diversification, people are putting money into this country. Overseas investment is going in, but we're not putting it on record. And also, we're losing money as well because of other economies being attractive. Nearly $1.8 billion has gone to the euro real estate market, which it shouldn't have, because we have better returns, we have better yields. But because of the devaluation rupee, 1 year alone,
the devaluation plus the uncertainty, unfortunately, is another very important factor. So that's our youth. 65 or 70 or perhaps 75%. I mean, that's not only in Pakistan. 70% of the total population is under the age of 30 in Saudi Arabia. Yep. So the cases with Afghanistan, and it's a global phenomenon, just like the baby boomers. So this youth could either become a demographic dividend, the kind of energy they have, the kind of ideas which prevail in their minds, or it can become a demographic disaster if they're not taken care of, or if their energy is not channelized properly. So. And honestly speaking, I mean, just by introducing a few programs doesn't serve the purpose. Because mass production of MBAs and BBAs and BAs and very, very average quality of the end product, I would say.
Basically, I've done some work on this. When you have a high population, it's very interesting, as you said, either it's a problem or it's a benefit. I call it a liability or an asset. To tell you the truth, the population in Pakistan is an asset. And this is not some semantic story or something. The point is, one has to strategically decide, are you trying to control the population or manage it? Because sometimes it becomes mutually exclusive. Pakistan's population growth was somewhere between 3.3% around about 15-20 years ago. Right now it's close to 2.7. So actually your population growth has come down just a little bit. The problem is population management. That's through mass economics, mass education, mass sports, mass messaging. Right now, what's happening, because I've worked on this and I have a reasonable idea about this, the funny thing is that when you actually start to do an analysis, the most densely populated places on earth are predominantly economic centers, hubs. They're like beehives. Macau, Hong Kong, Singapore, you just name it. I mean, if we look at the per square density of population, and there is no, there are two caveats to this. Number one, there is no violence over there. There is no systematic violence which is trying to stop your economy. Now, we had 5,000 bombs blow up. 4,500 roundabout were in economic centers, economic areas. That's what caused our GDP to come down, to slow down. Right now, our GDP should be, and I'm not making this up, $450 billion. Where is the need for IMF? This is what
you're currently 278.
No, it's close to 290 billion, close to 300 billion if you sort of make some adjustments. But you're losing a minimum 100 billion per year because of violence in economic areas. I've worked on this very extensively. So what I'm trying to share is that when you look at a heavy population center, it's actually something good. You just have to manage it. No country tolerates violence. But at the end of the day, those countries are not in the center of a storm. Pakistan has come through a successful fourth generation war for 14 years. No other country has succeeded as we have. So that's why you don't talk about coffee latte, you talk about coffee. You just want to survive. Now we've started talking about these things, so there is a gap. Coming back to our population is basically an asset, not a liability. It depends how we deal with it. I've even gone so far as to propose that we need to bring in our mosque system. Half of it should be outside the mosque. It should be half mass economics, half mass sports. We need to build up sports. We need to bring our energies into areas where we compete and win. Some lose, some win. This is such a basic thing that we've forgotten. So we don't know how to interact with each other. So there's a social dynamic to this. Having a lower population may not be actually good. And just to be very pedantic about this, actually there are many scarcely populated areas which are extremely violent. They're not economic centers at all. So when you start to look at the statistics, having a heavy population is actually, it's muscle. It's financial economic muscle.
My question, there's another aspect to it also. I'll take the name, Anwar Beg Saab, one of our very dear friends, former senator also. He has this business of exporting people to various countries where they go and they work, especially in the Middle East. I was having a word with his son a couple of months ago, and I was surprised to know that there are jobs available, but we did not have that kind of the workforce, that efficient workforce which is technically correct and can be that productive as compared to India or Bangladesh or other countries. One factor. We are not working on the skill development, sir, on a massive scale, because everybody can't become a specialist surgeon. Everybody can't become an electronic engineer. There are so many other layers. You need to fit in people there as well. Everybody is looking for a cook, but you can't end up having a good cook. Or, for example, a good driver. There are no institutes where people are trained and then you can categorize them according to their skill. Or perhaps skill development is another very important factor, polishing the skill. When I see these videos of cobblers sitting in USA and UK and making biscuit shoes and the stitching and the detail and the finesse, honestly speaking, and that pair is being sold at $20,000, that really takes my breath away, because over here we have got that talent, but with slight effort we can do so much. We are not. Either we are just looking at the top-notch stuff where we can let's suppose invest $5 billion and we can end up having a huge business. Why not to start from the basics?
If I can just very quickly try to answer that. Basically what happens is, in economics, economic growth is a process. It is not just a trip. You depart here and you arrive there. It's not that simple. It is a gradual process with gradual improvement in your quality, which Pakistan has done, by the way, even in a war scenario. This is something we need to give ourselves a pat on the back for. Our leather goes to Italy, it gets stamped with something else, and then suddenly it's sold for a very expensive price I won't take any names, in some shops.
Product into a brand.
Yeah, so the point is, we basically, I personally think Pakistan had 10 years stolen from it, very, very strategically. And I have been saying this for almost 5 years now. Okay, it's nothing new. So, we're trying to gain those 10 years. The cobbler that you were talking about, it's just an example, just extending on that. Of course we can do that. Of course we can do that. That's not an issue. It will just take a little time for us to sort of start connect. The mere fact that you brought it up, the mere fact that I'm talking about it, the mere fact that Shahid Saab and Sardar Saab are talking about this, and some people are watching, that means we're interested in building things up. Pakistani brands have started to emerge, but we need to have mega brands. We have 5 million SMEs, as Sardar Saab said, very nice. We have 4.8 million small traders. Let's not forget our muscle. So coming back to Pakistan has a lot of muscle. We just need to sort of navigate through certain problems that we're trying to fix. It's going to take a little while, but what you're saying, that build up, we need to start building things up in an evolutionary manner, not in a revolutionary manner. We like revolutions, basically. It's ingrained in our head. We have a microchip here which always says, no, do it quickly. No, build it up slowly, steadily. That's how you grow. If certain companies went up like this, I won't take any names, they also came down just like that. So let's not just look at the upside, you have to look at the downside as well. Pakistan's GDP grew in a war scenario. I've said this on TV for the past 6-7 years. This is remarkable, it's unheard of. We're not a war economy. And we are now trying to build up our cotton production, even in places like Balochistan. People don't know. Our oil is going to be substituted by olive oil. We're about to exceed this production of Spain in olive oil. People don't know about this because they don't bother to check. And we have not publicized it. I mean, we are terrible marketers. That's a separate issue.
The trend started about a decade ago, I remember.
Yeah, because
look at the olive oil and olive exports of Turkey. They've also, I mean, it's
Absolutely.
over 800 million, if I'm not wrong. 800 million, that's a huge number.
Can I just one small,
Please,
very
please,
quick point that we were just talking about textiles and everything. We're expecting to export more in textiles and everything, but you know, a lot of that is grey cloth. We're a country that has started to criticize our own exports, rightly so. Why are you exporting grey cloth? Export something, you know, just stamp it, bleach it, color it, and then sell it for 10 times that amount. So,
value addition, basically.
So this is called course correction, I would say. We are correcting our course. It just takes a little time, and we need to be more patient and persevering.
Hopeful.
Yep.
That's what I see. Now coming to you, sir, one very important factor. So there was this document recently, you know, everybody was talking about, and that was about the national security policy of Pakistan. This government claims that this is the first time that has been introduced. So interestingly, for the first time, the center of that document was all about your economy. We used to always hear about the external threat, the internal threat. Food security, water security, climate change, global warming, population bomb. I mean, these are all interlinked in one way or the other. Now, sir, in order to have a decent workforce with a certain amount of energy, a certain amount of a mindset, and with certain level of understanding of that particular job they're doing, I mean, obviously you need to feed them well. They need to be educated to a certain level. You need to take care of their health. I mean, this document covers everything. Now, sir, economy, since that has been considered as the backbone of our national security policy, sir, what sort of steps do you think the government should take in the coming years? Because this document is from 2 till 6, 5 years.
I think we have to work a lot on the education and making the people more skilled, because I think this is the way forward, and I think this is the way we can improve our exports, and we can work a lot on import substitution as well. And I think we have seen this in the last couple of years as well. There is improvement, but I think there should be the activity should be much higher and much larger, because you know, this is the only way we can shape up our economy, we can accelerate our economy. Let me just give you an example that, you know, we have done very well on making the people more skilled. We have companies which are the largest socks manufacturer in the world. We have companies which are also going to export radial tires to US and Brazil. Okay, so there are some companies which are doing this, and they're educating their people. They are making the people more skilled, because they are bringing the people from China, from US, to train the people here. So these are the things going on, and we have to put more focus on the economy, and this is the only way forward. And this economic growth should be indifferent between the parties. I mean, whichever party comes in power, the first and foremost responsibility should be to improve the economic growth, and and this is and control our fiscal deficit as well, because we have to increase our tax to GDP as well. Our tax is very low, and we have to, and this is the way, and we have also seen good growth in this financial year as well. So there's 25 to 26% of tax growth as well, and I think we have to work a lot on this way. And I think the only thing I think we should focus on is export and import substitution. That's the way forward, and this is how we can shape up our economy, and we can have more security on everywhere, I think.
I think very well said, sir. But interestingly, I'll just share something here. It says that the state of the economy in 2021, let us recall the World Economic Forum's Global Crisis Report, which was released in January this year, about a year ago. The report highlighted that during 2021, the world could face the following risks and threats. Asset bubble burst, as you mentioned as well. Then they said price instability, what we have witnessed over a period of time. Debt crisis, again, a major issue. Commodity shocks, livelihood crisis, extreme weather, weapons of mass destruction, digital power concentration, and digital inequality. So there are a lot of challenges ahead also. I think time to sit down and focus, because time is really flying, and I think we have already missed the train, but we've also heard that there is another one coming. I hope we shouldn't miss this one this time. So that's a great one, right? Because I mean, that also reminds me of another very great venture. I would say government was really taking the credit for that. That this train, which would take about 8-9 days, that is going to go from Pakistan all the way from Iran into Turkey. This idea was also initiated in the People's Party's government, if you remember, when Yusuf Gilani was the Prime Minister. So I think consistency is something very important. If one party has done something good, let's capitalize on that. Let's not criticize just because they'll get the, all the
focus on national interest.
Absolutely, national interest should be the first and foremost important. Anyway, sir, thank you so much, sir, for your presence. Sardar, it was a pleasure having you, and thank you so much, Shahid Ali Habib sir, for your presence as well, sir. And with this, we come to the end of our show, and I would like to say have a great weekend and have a great New Year's, and I would hope that when we start the show again in 2022, things in 2022 remain consistent, remain constant. We should get rid of this COVID issue. I mean, enough is enough now. People are really sick and tired of it. But I think one has to be really careful also, follow the SOPs. They're really important, and certain precautions should be always there. Anyway, inshallah, till I see you again, have a great time. Khuda Hafiz.